Welcome back to the channel. This game features Oleg Romanishin, the Ukrainian grandmaster, a very strong grandmaster, against Nigel, played in round 7 of the Lvov tournament in 1984. The game started as an English opening. The symmetrical variation. This is slightly unusual, pushing the pawn, creating a backward D pawn. Trying to expand on the queen side. And then Nigel pushes in the centre, kicking the knight. The knight retreats to probably the best square. And now Nigel duly defends the e-pawn. All developing moves. A bit of a strange choice, taking the d-pawn, allowing white to recapture with the knight. He does gain the c-pawn. The white has extra development and good compensation. This is a clever move. It obviously threatens the bishop on g7 and also puts pressure on the c5 pawn. A bit strange. I thought maybe taking the bishop would have been better, because obviously now his king's going to be pushed into the open. And white regains his pawn, and then now has a slightly better position. A natural move, but maybe rook to f6 was a better move, trying to defend the d-pawn and bring the rook into the game. And white's gained space on the queen side and has a better position with more space and a better pawn structure. Black tries to expand on the king side. And this move, although natural, looking at the g-pawn, this is the fact that white could have sacrificed the exchange with rook to takes a6. And after the check, he picks up the a pawn. And that's a slightly better position. That wasn't played. He played queen to d2, keeping an eye on the g pawn. And now white decides to challenge the king side and threatens to break it open. Here I think white missed a good move. In fact, he could have doubled the rooks on the f file and caused quite a lot of pressure on the f pawn. This would have been very uncomfortable for black. He chose to push on h4, which Nigel took. Again, maybe not the best option. Queen to f6. and connecting the rooks might have been a better option for black. The game's fit slightly in white's favour, but black's holding okay. But he took on h4 and allows the knight in to a beautiful square on f4. King has to get out of the way of the called e6. And actually, white actually plays knight to e6, and black's not that worried about the exchange, as after queen to f6 he gets quite good compensation for the exchange. His pieces are very active. At some point, I think this is a mistake from white. He ignores the exchange, which would have been the best course. But now he allows the white bishop to come into play and taking the e pawn. And now the game is very complicated. It's fairly equal, but there's a lot going on. White tries to more pressure on the f pawn, threatening to take f5. He himself now is exchange sacrifice, which Nigel duly accepts and finds the only move in the position that would hold it all together, defending the f pawn, attacking the queen. White finally accepts the rook on f8, but the game is quite equal now, even though it's complicated. A lot of simplification has allowed the game to be simplified. White grabs the pawn on b7 as the f pawn is still pinned. So Nigel breaks the pin of the knight and is now threatening to take the bishop. White retreats to g2, but potentially should have stayed on the b1 to h7 diagonal, or even just taking the pawn, and after a lot of trades, the game would have been probably drawn. Nigel accepts the pawn. He's now a pawn up, but the game is still very complex. There's the white pawns on the queen side are dangerous, and black's pawns now on the king side are dangerous. White had to play this move actually because black was actually threatening queen to d4 check, king h1, queen to h4 check, king g1, and queen h2 mate. So the queen moves into the centre of the board, renewing the threat via queen to e3 check. And this is a strange decision from white. I think the best move here would definitely have been queen to d2 to stop any queen to e3 check. But Nigel misses the best move. He played queen to e3 check should have been played. And after king to g2, rook to f6 now, and threatening to infiltrate on h6. And this is very nice for black, and it's probably winning. Nigel played the rook to f6 first, and now white gets time to play queen to d2 to stop queen to e3 check. And therefore defends the g3 pawn. Here again, the game is still quite evenly balanced. White plays bishop to g4, attacking the rook, And Nigel plays knight to f5, which is a natural move to block the check, block the rook attack. But if it had played the other way and gone to knight to d5, I think he's completely winning. White can take the rook, but after queen to e4 check, and then queen to b1 check. The difference is now that knight to e3 check is going to pick up the rook on h1. White can't take the knight because queen to c2 gets out of the attack and allows black to pick up the queen. Unfortunately, Nigel missed that and he played knight to f5, and the game is now still level. White chooses to check on d7, maybe taking the knight would have been a better option just to simplify the position. And this is the only good move for the king, to push forwards. Another check from white, which is blocked. And here's probably the losing move. The move he has to go to h8, as he will eventually run out of checks by playing queen to f8. He plays queen to h8, the knight has to block. And rook to d1. And black always has to keep an eye on the f pawn because white can take it with check, so he can't really penetrate. The queen to f8 was played, and as mentioned, this actually loses, but Nigel misses the win by playing rook to f7. The actual winning move is king to g5, and as mentioned before, white will end up running out of checks. So his best option is actually to take the knight, swap off the queens. And now black with his extra 2 pawns on the king side, and the more active king will win the game. If instead of taking the knight, white chooses to play queen to g8 check and rook to d7, and then you can take the bishop. And now he runs out of checks, and black has got a material up and winning completely. But he played rook to f7, which did give black a chance to save the game. After the queens come off, he's still fairly. I mean, black has got some dangerous pawns. The position is quite drawish in the fact that white can start to push his own pawns and apply pressure on the queen side. But this move actually is not a very good move due to black's next move, which is threatening the bishop, threatening the b pawn. So knight to e3 is coming at some point. White defends the bishop. Obviously, black can't take the e pawn, the b pawn, as queen to c7 wins the exchange and the game. So Nigel plays rook to e7, centralising the rook. White tries to get behind the pass pawn, but does allow the black rook to penetrate into the white position via e2. And the king's pushed further forward. And here black can actually just ignore the threat of the knight with g2, which is a good move. Obviously rook to f1 is coming if king takes knight, which is actually played in the game. So black's got himself a queen, but white's idea is to obviously queen his own c pawn. Unfortunately, never gets the chance really because black has too many checks. And he just continues to check, picking off the loose pawns. Positions repeated, maybe black was in a bit of time trouble. And now black decides just to push the pawns if white does queen, which he does in the game. The exchange happens and the A pawn's running and the F pawn will be running as well. And white cannot stop both of them. So a very good win for Nigel, who got his tournament back in on a bit of a track against a very, very strong Grandmaster. And please like and subscribe if you like the game. And until next time, cheerio, bye.